Hey guys, my name is Jason Creel and I want to talk to you about 40 lawn business tips to help you be successful. Now these can be whether you're starting a lawn business or maybe you've been in the lawn business for a while and you're looking to improve. And actually what I'm doing is I'm going over a list that I created years ago, and just to be honest with you, some of the information that was relevant then needed to be updated. So I'm going over the list and I'm gonna comment on the tips and tell you if it's still true today or if it needed to be updated and maybe not relevant. For instance, one of them I put on there for the tip was to buy a GPS because it doesn't make any sense to drive around in circles looking for a yard. Well, obviously in today's society, almost everybody has a built-in GPS app on their smartphone, so that one would not be as relevant. So some of these I'm going to need to update, but I think this is going to be great information for you to help you, like I said, if you're getting off to with your lawn business and starting a lawn business, be able to get off on the right foot, but if you're already in there, maybe to clean up some of the mistakes that you've made. So without further ado, let's start the video. 40 lawn business tips starting now. All right, tip number one, upgrade your equipment every 2 years. Now some of you may disagree with this and I don't always live it out, but I think the principle that I'm getting at is what's important here. Sometimes I see people and their business is so structured so poorly that they're unable to upgrade the equipment due to lack of finances. And what happens is you end up with an old piece of equipment that continually needs repaired, and you're continually putting more money in that equipment because you can't afford to buy a new piece of equipment, and then you got so much money sunk into an old piece of equipment that you can't, sell. It's not worth you can't sell it for near what you've put into it, and so you just kind of caught. Eventually you just have to cut your losses on that piece of equipment or keep putting more money into a piece of equipment that's not worth the cost of the repair. So, what you'll see a lot of the bigger companies do is they are constantly upgrading their equipment. Handheld equipment, to me, honestly, it's not worth repairing them many times. Let's say you buy a $350 string trimmer. Well, if let's say it needs the carburetor cleaned out or whatever, and the shop wants to charge you a half-hour labor or something, maybe it's $40, $50 or sometimes $75 or whatever they're going to charge you. It's the downtime that costs you, and plus just putting more money into a piece of equipment. I'm not saying don't ever repair your equipment. Maybe if you're a handy person, you can do it yourself. But oftentimes it makes sense to upgrade your equipment while it still has value. If you have a mower, and let's say you put 500 hours on it in 2 years, you can sell it, turn around, buy a new one, write off the new purchase on your taxes. Of course, you're gonna have to claim what you sell the old one for, but it's not that big of a difference. Now, key to doing this is your business has to be profitable enough where you can justify that. Some people, their business is not struggling. If you can't afford to upgrade your equipment, oftentimes it's a sign that your business is not doing well enough. You're not making enough money to be able to do that. Again, some people are meticulous about their maintenance, work by themselves. They might want to keep a mower for 10, 20 years. I'm not arguing against that. I'm just saying, see the way the big companies do it oftentimes, and they're making enough money. They upgrade equipment, always have great equipment, cuts way down on your downtime. When you write it off on your taxes, it's really not that big of an expense, and you have a warranty, if they have problems with it. Tip number two, use one day of the week for your M&M is what I have here on my sheet with my tips. And what I mean by that is your marketing and your maintenance. So whether that's you doing as a business owner, I'm picturing you starting off and it's you and you're struggling to get going in the business, you need to take that downtime, and instead of sitting there feeling sorry for yourself how you don't have any customers, be out there figuring out how I'm going to get customers, and also taking that time to maintain your equipment. Sometimes we get so busy out there doing the work, or you just neglect your maintenance. And all you got to do, if you're just starting off and you got a lawnmower, you can have a file on your computer, or even sometimes I used to use a dry erase board, and I'd write the name of the mower, I'd write down change oil, grease, fuel filter, whatever needed to be done, and I would write on there the date and how many hours I had when it was last done. I could keep up with it that way. From the marketing standpoint, again, if you start off, you don't have the customers, doesn't necessarily mean you got to go out there and pound the pavement and knock on doors. You can do that, but maybe you're out in the community trying to build relationships, you're on the internet trying to develop a website, you're contacting people in the community that can send you business. I often say, me doing a lot of weed control and fertilization, if I can build relationships with people mowing lawns, then that's great because they send me customers, and vice versa. I send them business as well. But you got to take time for this, and ultimately you'll see as your business grows, and maybe you can delegate delegate some of the actual labor, then you can still, as a business owner, be able to handle some of the marketing if that's something you feel comfortable doing. But you know, it takes effort to get customers. When I started my latest business, I got about 100 customers the first year, and a lot of that was through the internet and through relationships that I had built. Tip number 3, order your parts ahead of time online if possible. Now, listen, I'm not against dealers, and I think you need to have a good relationship with your dealer. But sometimes there's things like belt on your lawnmower or something like that where you can go ahead and order ahead of time. Even if you order from the dealer or online, it's about having the parts that you're gonna need to be able to get back up and running. What you don't wanna do is break a belt, go to the dealer and say, hey, I broke a belt. And they say, oh, we don't have one in stock, but we can get you one in 2 to 3 days. And then that's 2 to 3 days you're down because you don't have a belt, you know. So order it ahead of time, and again, you might save some money online, but whoever you get it from, to me, it's more about the downtime and being ready. And so you may even ask your dealer, like, what are some common parts that I would need on hand for this particular piece of equipment so that I can be ready? You know, things that might tear up time or need maintenance. For instance, for me, doing the weed control and fertilization, I have a big spray reel on my big hose on a spray truck, and the button that winds in the reel sometimes goes bad. And so I want to keep extra buttons. I mean, they're like, you know, probably less than $10 for the button. But that button goes down, then I've got a hand wind in the reel, which is not fun, and it's just a pain. So you don't want to have to wait 2 or 3 days to replace a small part that can keep you down. The next tip is one I actually had on the old list as number 1. I still love this tip. It's use speed feed heads. If you're familiar with the speed feed trimmer heads, you know, you think about a traditional string trimmer head, and you see people out there, and I just remember as a kid seeing people, and they take the head apart and they take the line and they'd start wrapping the line around there, and then it would come undone and you'd have to start all over. You'd wrap it, it'd be twisted, and you'd go to bump the head and it wouldn't feed line. You know, the speed feed heads are great. I mean, they're like $30-something probably, but they come with adapters that fit all kinds of things, and it's not a promotional for speed feed heads. I'm just telling you, you can literally load the line in less than 30 seconds. What I like to do, if I'm out there trimming, I like to go ahead and cut off like a 15-foot section of line and coil it up and keep it in my pocket. And then if I run out while I'm out there away from the truck, then I can pull that line out and go ahead and re-spool without even having to turn the trimmer off, and I barely miss a beat. Number 5, continue to learn about the industry. You know what? Maybe one resource for doing that in today's business is watching YouTube videos. There's some great people out there making YouTube videos and a lot of good information on there. I know there's live events. We host a live event down here in Alabama that we've done 3 times so far, and it's been great. But there's a lot of opportunities out there on the internet or even in person, maybe talking with some people that you know that are outside your areas, maybe not a direct competitor, or maybe somebody that is a direct competitor, but they're willing to share with you some of the things, people that's been more experienced in the industry. So just continue to adapt. I've learned that, you know, I'd be doing things wrong for years and not know it because I wasn't actually researching. I just thought, well, this is how much I should charge for these yards, and then get out there and you start learning, you find out, wow, I'm way underpricing my yards. I'm costing myself thousands of dollars because I'm not even pricing up to standard in our area. I could have been charging a lot more. And so there's common mistakes that people make all the time that just with a little bit of research and a little bit of effort to try to do to continue learning, they could have ended up making themselves a lot more money. I've learned this in my own business, that sometimes it's worth even paying somebody to learn what you need to know. I've worked with coaches and things like that to gain knowledge to help me grow in my own business. Number 6, get a great logo for your business. I really believe this. I understand there's companies out there that are very successful and they just have no logo or just put their name on the side of their truck or whatever. I just don't understand. It doesn't cost that much to have something that looks decent even. I tell people, if you look decent in the lawn business, then you're better than most of the other people in the lawn business. I mean, if you just have a somewhat of a professional appearance. I'm not saying go overboard and spend thousands of dollars, but just show that you care a little bit. And why is that important? I mean, one, I just want to look at something that I'm proud of for my business. I don't want to look at a sorry logo. Let me see if I can show you my logo. There's my Alabama Lawn Pros logo, and I've got it on everything. And I think it's a great logo. It's not the best one I've ever seen. I think it's great and looks professional on the side of my truck and on my business cards, on my website and things like that, on my shirts. But it's just not that hard, and it sets you apart. So when you go and you're trying to make that first impression to a customer and you say, hey customer, my work is excellent, and so my price is right here. Maybe your price is actually a little bit high for your area, but you're trying to convince that customer you're worth it because of how great you are, how reliable your company is and the quality of your work. And yet you got a horrible, cheap looking logo and your business name is nothing. And to me, it just kind of could put that speck of doubt in that customer's mind. I'm thinking, if I see, let's see that I go to an HVAC guy comes out to my house and he goes to crank his truck and it won't crank and a big old puff of black smoke comes out, and I'm thinking, man, he might be the greatest HVAC guy ever, and he's probably giving me a good deal because he's obviously not making any money in his business. But I'm okay if they pull up in a nice fancy truck that looks great, which says they're making a lot of money, and honestly they might be charging me a higher price, but I know it looks like just the professionalism kind of puts me at ease as a customer. And I think it's the same with the lawn business. You don't have to be great to rise above some of your competitors, but a little bit of effort in this helps. We do sell logos on my website, lawncarelife.com. They're like $59 at the time of this video, but you can get one other place. You can go on Fiverr.com, Fiverr, and get one made. There's options out there for cheap logos, and then you can pay somebody, a graphic designer, and $1,000 and get a really nice one. So there are options out there, but just to me, just don't cheap out totally on your logo. It just looks bad, and that goes for your whole branding overall. I think the way your website looks and things, again, in today's society, you don't have to be some great web developer. There's drag and drop templates, or you can hire somebody to do it for a basic website that will give you that professional look without being too expensive. Number 7, hire employees only with experience. Now, I still think that's best practice in my opinion. I'm not saying you can't train somebody. If you found the right person and you just felt like they had all the other things just without the experience, but they had the work ethic, they had the character, you felt like they were reliable, and you saw, I can train this person, and that you knew they would be in it and give you time to train it. What the problem with me is, if I feel like if I invest in training somebody, and that's going to take months, or even doing weed control and fertilization, sometimes years before they're like really good at it, and then are they going to stick with me that long? And am I going to lose them? I feel like I wasted a lot of that effort I put into them. So, and then too, sometimes you get somebody and they think, oh yeah, I work outside, I mowed my grandmother's yard and that sort of thing. They get out there and they can't take the heat, and they just don't know what they're doing. And so sometimes it's just like, you need somebody that been there, done that. Now the problem with that is, if you got somebody experienced, that probably means they left some other company or got fired or something. So, there's not a perfect answer here. But to me, I would most of the time rather go with somebody with experience. In my past, I've had better success with that option than getting somebody who was very green in the industry, no pun intended, but then trying to train them, and it didn't always work out. Number 8, it's one of my favorite ones, to be honest with you. Learn to say no to your customers. I think this is great, and because you're going to find that there are customers who want to take advantage of you. You come out there to cut the grass, and they say, oh, I've even had one say, hey, can you come inside and hang a picture up for me? I didn't know that was included in the lawn service, that I'm going to hang pictures in people's houses. Or I've got a water leak, can you fix that? Will you check on my sprinkler system? Or will you mind trimming this one little hedge over here? It won't take you long. And kind of the expectation is going to be free. And so you have to learn to either say no or to say, yes ma'am, I'd be happy to do that. The price is this much, and that's what it is. Just look at it as a business, because, and I'm not saying you can't help out somebody, you have an old lady that can't do something. I'm not saying you can't do something to help somebody. If you decide, hey, I want to help this person, then so be it. But what you're going to understand is, some people want to take advantage of you, and that's ultimately costing you money, and you find that you got a customer that's constantly milking you, and they want to complain if you ever charge them anymore. Oftentimes it's hurting your business and costing you money. So you got to learn to say no. Yeah, you might even start figuring out what area you want to target and say, I'm working in these neighborhoods, and this is where I'm going to build my business, my route density. And so somebody calls you that's 15 minutes outside that area and says, can you come do this business? And you just say no. Or maybe it's a one-time mowing and it's not convenient to you. I'm not opposed to doing a one-time mowing if it's next door and they hand me the money up front. But if they say, hey, can you come over here and look at my yard and give me a price and then mow it one time, and you get over there and the grass is 2 feet tall, and it's just, so learn to say no to your current customers and to potential customers if they don't fit what you're looking to do with your business. Number 9, respond to customers quickly when they're wanting a quote. Now, I've done this in the past week. I've had a couple opportunities, and it's kind of a down season for us, a down time in our season. But I've had a couple opportunities to give a quote, and both of them, I responded from the time I got their phone call or email, whichever it was. I believe I was at their house within 30 minutes. Now, that's not always realistic. It just so happened that both of them were very close to where I was. It was in both in a neighborhood that I really wanted the business in. And I mean, one of them called at like 4 o'clock on a day when I was kind of winding down and I was honestly getting ready to go home for the day. And I said, I tell you what, I'm gonna head over there and look at it right now. I sold him on the spot. I go give him a quote and he said, that sounds great to me. When can you start? And I went back the very next day and took care of his lawn, and now he is a regular customer moving forward. So that quick response is gonna really help, because to me, if you drag around for a day or two, I mean, sometimes when people call you, they want somebody right then. But it's that, again, that perceived image in the customer's mind. If I say, hey, yes, I would love the opportunity for your lawn, I'll come over right now, then that customer knows this guy wants my business. Where sometimes it's like lawn business, they like, whatever, I guess I'll get over there. And it's like they don't seem interested, and that gives a bad perception to the customer. So I think it's a great advantage if you can be the first one there to look at the lawn, especially if they're getting multiple quotes. Number 10, this one is especially true for people like me with fair skin. I wear a big hat. I wear the big sun hat with the neck flap and everything. I mean, I tell people it's like my own personal shade tree. I think it's worth about 10 degrees. I mean, when I take that hat off, I feel like it's 10 degrees hotter with the sun beating down, not to mention just how I get easily sunburned. And I mean, I still put sunscreen on my nose and ears and cheeks and neck and all that, but I still wear that big hat. Now, obviously I don't wear it in the wintertime. In the summer, it just really cools me off, but just the dangers of being out there when it's 95 degrees and you're out there doing physical labor for 8 to 10 hours a day, that's not good for you. And the prolonged exposure to the sun obviously is not good. So anyway, I would encourage you. I mean, I get one off Amazon. It's like $10 or something, but they're great. They're lightweight, breathable, got the neck flap, and I don't care if it's not a fashion statement. It's great for me. Number 11, this kind of goes along with the big hat, but have you seen these things that they're I don't know what you call them. The one brand I'm familiar with is called Frog Togs, and they call it a chili pad, but it's basically a square cloth that's very absorbent, and you get it wet and it stays cold for hours, and you wrap it around your neck or your head or stuff it down your shirt or whatever you want to do with it. But again, those hot summer days, things like that, I've got one of those. I only typically use it if it's like really hot, but they are amazing. They do. I usually put it around my neck, and they will help keep you cool for a while on those super hot days. Number 12, don't work on Sunday. Now, you may not do that for religious reasons. That's part of the reason that I do it, but just practically speaking, working 7 days a week is not a good idea. I mean, I'm convinced of that. I mean, I can tell for me, if I work and then I have a couple of days off on Monday, I just feel a lot better. I mean, not just physically. Sometimes your body starts hurting a little bit, aches and pains of just your back and legs and things like that, but mentally just a little more refreshed. So I mean, it's just common sense. Working all the time is not good for you. And if you're having to work all the time, unless you're just in a desperate situation and you're just trying to pay off a lot of debt or do something like that, but it's for the long haul, that's not a good idea. And you need to structure a business where you can be more profitable working 5 days a week or even 4 days a week, and not just have to work all the time. That should be a kind of a red flag that something's not right with your business. Number 13, going along with that, don't give up on your hobbies. I personally like to fish some, and I play golf maybe 5 times a year or something. I'm not, I don't have tons of hobbies anymore. I like to do a lot of things, just don't have time. Some of that's from my business. A lot of it just has to do with having 4 kids, staying busy with things like that. But you want to have a life outside of work. Now, I know some of you just really love doing lawn care, and it kind of is a hobby for you that you get paid for, and that's a great thing. But I mean, come on, there's got to be something that you you'd rather be doing if you weren't getting paid for it, and you think, well, what do I enjoy doing? And maybe that's just laying down and watching something on TV or something, just relaxing. But anyway, I think it's good to have goals to try, even self-development of how I'm going to continue growing as a human, whether I'm exposing myself to new teaching. For me, I do a lot of audio books on Audible, and I listen to a lot of podcasts and things like that to continue just how else can I develop as a person other than just lawn care and as a business person. Number 14, set up a file cabinet. Now this is kind of the old school way of doing it and still functions if you want to do that. I mean, you can have a file cabinet and have different folders. So when you do your year-end taxes, and I'm of course familiar with the United States system of doing taxes, but it may be similar in other countries, but there's different categories that an accountant is going to want from you. And if you have a bookkeeper that can do this for you, that's great. And of course, a lot of this can be done electronically now. You can store things electronically, whether it be taking a picture of a receipt, or if you just want to actually file away the physical copy of the receipt, you can. But I've got these folders set up. So I've got like a folder for office expenses. I've got a folder for supplies. I've got a folder for my truck expenses. I've got a folder for my fuel for my lawnmowers. I've got a folder for marketing expenses. And these are different categories that when you go to file your year-end taxes, they're going to ask for your expenses, but they ask it to be broken into these different categories. So to me, it just makes sense to have these folders set up, whether physical folders in a file cabinet or something that you're doing digitally. And then, of course, at some point in the year, these have to be compiled and added up to know what is your total expenses that you can then deduct off your taxes, which makes a huge difference in how much you're going to owe the government at the end of the year. Number 15, again, I did these original lists years ago. I said use a well-designed postcard for advertising. Now, I used to do a lot of postcards. I would go around and put them on the doors or door hangers, and the point being that a well-designed postcard is going to outperform a cheap flyer. If you just type up a flyer on your computer, it's probably not going to do very well. But a postcard, again, gives you that professional appearance. The return rate on those is typically not great. And honestly, the legwork involved in putting them out. The great thing about putting them out yourself is you can be very targeted of which neighborhoods you want. But now you can use things like EDDM through the Postal Service. That's every door direct mail or something like that. That's cheaper. I mean, those things they do add up. They are expensive, especially for small businesses, but you can use direct mail, or you can, sometimes a more modern approach to marketing is through the internet. Like I said, I'm big on just having a website that ranks well on Google, which takes time and takes some expertise and takes some cost if you pay someone to do it. But you can do Facebook marketing, join in these local Facebook groups, and when you see somebody asking for lawn care, make sure you leave a comment. Ask some of your people you know to comment for you, recommend you. Even going on past people, find where people are looking for lawn care companies in the past, and you see all the companies that they're recommending, you can reach out to those companies and try to build a relationship with those where y'all can begin sending each other referrals. Like I said, I'm doing weed control and fertilization. Those mowing people, they send me business and I send them business. Number 16, read the owner's manual on your equipment. So if you have a lawnmower, it helps to read the owner's manual. I'm not saying you got to read every word, but sometimes at least getting familiar with the maintenance schedule and having that somewhere that you know what needs to be done. I mean, a lot of these mowers, you go buy a brand new mower, they're going to want you to do a break-in oil change after 10 hours. And it's not, there's a reason for that. I'm not a mechanic. I don't understand all the reasons, but that's what most of them want you to do. After 10 hours, do a break-in oil change. You can't neglect your air filter forever. If you're out there doing leaf cleanups, dust everywhere, that air filter needs to be cleaned out. Your fuel filter, just understanding, of course, greasing your mowers, and some of them now have very few grease fittings, if any, but if they have grease fittings, I mean, that's something that needs to be done quite often. I used to sharpen your blades at least once a week if you're out there mowing all the time. What I would try to do is have several sets of blades. I would have one sharpened that I could put on there and then take the old ones off, and then I could sharpen those later, have them ready to go next time. time, but sharp blades make a difference. But again, just having a understanding of the owner's manual and just something I need to know about this particular piece of equipment and be able to file that away so that you can probably honestly find most of those owner manuals online nowadays, but just being familiar with what is recommended for that piece of equipment. Our number 17, as the owner of the business, don't work more than 45 hours per week before you hire someone. All right, let's talk about this one because that's I break that rule all the time. I work more than 45 hours a lot. And it kind of is going to depend some on what you're wanting to do with your business. Are you wanting to grow past yourself to where you have multiple people in the business, or are you wanting to stay solo? Well, depending on what the answer to that question is, and that's a very important question, you need to decide how you're going to approach your business. So, for instance, if you're going to stay solo, then you only have so much that you can work. And so you need to fill your schedule up, and then you need to begin maximizing profits. If you're solo, your prices need to be higher, in my opinion, and your route density needs to be great because, like I said, you're capped off at a certain number of hours. Now, there's a lot of advantages of being solo. You don't have to rely on other people. You don't have to pay the other people. You always know where everybody is at any given time because you're the only person. So there's some advantages, but the disadvantage is you're capped off at whatever you can do. And if you were to get injured or something happens to you, that obviously is going to be a big hit to your business. But if you're looking to grow, then I'm okay with you working until you reach basically what you can do. But if you start working more than 45 hours per week, then it tells me you probably don't have much time to do marketing. And at some point, you have to let go of the actual work, at least some of it, and bring somebody else in so that you can work on growing the business. And if you're unable to do that, you're probably never going to grow it past yourself. Now, sometimes I've seen people and they actually from the beginning just hire somebody to do the work, and their whole focus is on growing and managing the business. And that's fine. Now that's an expensive option because you have to pay that person even when you have very little business. So you have to have some money to be able to do that. But it kind of keeps you from getting trapped in what a lot of people do, and that's that they never are able to get out of the actual labor side of the business because they just can't get away from it, or they can't afford to bring somebody else in, or they're just kind of a micromanager and don't want to turn it loose. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with any of that, but if you're looking to grow big time, at some point you got to let loose and let somebody else handle some of the work for you. Number 18, use a software to handle your billing. I mean, it's today's age in society. I want to comment on this, but just the idea of what I used to do was mailing out invoices at the end of the month. That's not good. Don't do that anymore. I mean, that was always I hated doing it when I did it, but now there's just no reason to do it. I mean, if anything, if you want to do paper copies of something, just leave the invoice at the time of the service or something, but don't just mail it to them. The time of just stuffing envelopes, mailing stamps and all that is just ridiculous. So, but to me, and I've had to come to this conclusion, it's pretty much worth it in my mind to pay the credit card fees just to have somebody do it for you. So if they're going to charge me 2.85% or whatever it is, the credit card, it's worth it for the convenience. So I do a lot of email invoicing. I go out and do all my work, and then at the end of the day, I can click the tabs and send all the invoices to those customers. Now, as far as in softwares will do that, and they're built in, it's just kind of standard. So there's a lot of options as far as lawn care softwares. I'm using Yardbook at the moment. Jobber has been a friend of the channel for me, and they've sponsored a lot of events, and they also another great option. They've got great customer service and things. So those are two to start with if you're doing mowing. If you end up growing and you want to get into doing other things, I mean, there's other options out there, but those would be the two that I would recommend you look at. Another thing about the softwares, I mean, you can use them for routing and just, I mean, not just collection and not just a database for your customers, but there's a lot of advantages. And they have apps that you can look at on your phone and be able to pull stuff up. I mean, I can pull up any customer at any time. I can send them an invoice while I'm out in my truck. I can, do whatever. If I go built in where I can just type their address, go to their house on Google Maps. I mean, it's all can be done from your phone or a tablet inside your truck, and of course on a laptop at home. Number 19, this one took me a long time and I'm still not quite there. Don't take it personal when you lose a customer. You're gonna lose customers. Almost everybody loses customers. I lose customers more now that doing weed control than I did when I was mowing. It's just a little bit more turnover involved. And I've gotten a little bit better at handling it, but to tell you what, it just, some of the ones that you lose are the ones that you feel like you went out of your way to help and you gave them a good price, and then something happens, they fire you, whether it's your fault or not, or maybe they kind of got used to you going out of your way and you wouldn't go out of your way for them as much as they wanted you to, and so they cancel on you. Or I had people, I made this mistake, I was trying to bill people year round for the mowing, but I was only actually mowing their lawn like 8 months out of the year, so I was basically giving them a really cheap price all summer long, and I would make up for it in the wintertime. They would pay me in the wintertime. Well, I found out that was really dumb on my part. I'm basically cheating myself all year long, hoping that I can, just get that money back in the winter. Well, sometimes the people would cancel in October right before the contract was going to shift back in my favor, and I was just costing myself money. So don't do that. I'm not saying you can't have year-round contracts, but don't cheat yourself in the summer and hope you can make it back up in the winter. But again, you're going to lose customers. It's okay. You got to focus on growing. Look at the overall picture at the end of the year. You may even have a bad week. Man, this week I lost 5 customers. I only gained 1. I'm -4 for the week. Look at it on an annual basis. For me, I might gain 100 customers next year and lose 15. Now those 15, maybe 4 of them were dissatisfied. 6 of them moved, 2 of them just canceled. They ran out of money or what. That 1 of them died. I mean, there's all kind of the reasons people cancel on you. It's not a big deal, but just don't take it so personal. Even if they get mad at you and if it's their fault and they're unreasonable, good. You got rid of an unreasonable customer. Now you can go out and find a reasonable one to replace them with. Number 20, related to this, is don't get in an argument with your customer and make a scene when they cancel on you. I mean, you got to think about it. In today's society, people can go on there and leave a review for you on Google or Facebook, and it looks bad, and those things are hard to get rid of. So you don't want to just destroy the relationship. And I'll say this, I've had 1 or 2 this year that have come back to me. One of them, I remember in particular, he canceled on me. He was unhappy. He thought he had too many weeds in his yard. I tried to explain to him some of the reasons why and things he could do to help, and he canceled. And he canceled my friend who was mowing the grass. He canceled me who was doing the weed control. Matter of fact, he canceled 2 of my friends that was mowing grass. He fired one, he hired another one, and he fired him too. And I thought, okay. Well, anyway, he fired me. He calls me back about 4 months later. He said, hey, I'm not near as good at taking care of lawns as I thought I was. Will you please take me back? Now, would he have done that if I would have blasted him for firing me? Whenever he fired me, if I'd have said, oh yeah, well, I tell you what, you're the problem. You done fired me, and you fired my friend, you fired my other friend. It sounds like you might be the problem instead of me, but I didn't do that. I just, held my composure. Now, I might have been thinking that in my head, to be honest with you, but held my composure, and then he came back, and I took him back as a customer, and now I'm providing service for him. So, don't risk blasting them, and they may leave you a negative review on the internet. And as a side tip, you need to make sure you're getting a lot of positive reviews just in case you get a negative. If you have a lot of positive, outweigh that negative one. 21, put postcards and door hangers in neighborhoods where you already have a lot of customers. Now, you might hear people talk about route density and how I'm going to grow my route density. Like, how many customers can I get in a small area where I don't have to waste time driving? This is very important. So postcards and door hangers, you may not be doing that. I mean, that's not a bad idea to have those on hand. You'll hear people talk about what's called like a 5 around. So if I've got this house, I want to put some kind of advertisement on the 2 neighbors beside it and the 3 houses across the street. The one directly across the street and then the 2 diagonal across the street. Or you may even go 7 around, or 9 around, whatever. Just put them all around in that area, because one, that's going to be the best chance you have to get a customer. Probably you're already in the neighborhood. They're seeing your work every time you go out there. They notice how great that lawn looks, and so it's going to be convenient for you to get another yard right there. You can hopefully end up getting multiple on the same street where you don't have to move your truck. But also, like I said, it's your best chance to get it because neighbors talk to each other. Hey, who are you using for your service? Wow, your yard looks great. So anyway, and ultimately building that route density where you don't have to drive much and you can keep your profits really high. 22, learn how to do some of the simple maintenance yourself, like sharpen blades, or maybe if you got people working for you, you got somebody that can do these things for you. But you don't have have to take it to the dealership for everything. I mean, you can sharpen blades, you can change a belt, you know, you can change a spark plug, you can change a fuel filter, air filter. I mean, some of this stuff is not that hard. I mean, you don't have to know how to rebuild the engine to be able to do some of the real basic stuff. I'm not that mechanical, just to be honest with you, but I can do the things that I've mentioned to you in this segment, and you know, it'll save you the inconvenience of having to drive over there and drop it off. Might be a day or two before you get it back, and you know, the cost is one thing, but it's more about just the pain it is to drop it off and go over there and the time that you're going to be away from your equipment. 23, keep a can of Wasp Spray with you. I used to get stung by a wasp, seem like every single year. Now, the two places where it would happen to me, and that don't happen as much anymore. I'm doing weed control, but when you're mowing grass, man, you get hit with those wasps. It would happen to me typically if somebody had a wooden privacy fence, and sometimes they'll have the boards staggered. You know, they have one board here and one board here and then here and here. You know, every other board. Well, they would go in that behind the one board and they'd build their nest. And so when you come through there with a string trimmer, a lawnmower, you get them all riled up and they come out and just light you up right in the back or wherever. And it, you know, made me so mad. So the other thing is when I was trimming hedges a lot, they would build a nest in the hedges, and you start trimming the hedge, and here they come flying out. Sometimes you can get away, and sometimes you can't. And of course, that's very frustrating as well. So Wasp Spray was one of the things I like to keep on my truck. 24, the Opti 2. It's Opti, I guess that's how you say it, right? OPTI-2 synthetic. I'm sorry, I don't know if it's synthetic or not, but the 2-cycle oil. That's the kind I use. Yeah, I buy like a gallon jug, and then it comes in like a little quart. I guess a quart or a pint or something. It's a smaller, like tip and pour kind of jug that you can measure out for 1 gallon or 2 gallons. What I like about this Opti 2 oil is it has a fuel stabilizer in it. So, you know, I try to run like ethanol-free gas, but, you know, this has a fuel stabilizer to help it if it sits up longer than it should. And it works on different ratios. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but, you know, a lot of your handheld equipment is going to run on a 50-to-1 gas to oil ratio. Well, this, you just put the same amount in there, whether you're running on a 32-to-1 or 40-to-1 or 50-to-1. It just has a line on the little jug, and it says, you know, put this much oil in there for a 1 gallon or of gas, and put this much in there for 2 gallons, and it works great. But anyway, I've used that oil and had great success without having to constantly be rebuilding carburetors. I think the combination of that with using ethanol-free gas in my handheld equipment has been great for me. 25, get a little portable air tank, or maybe even just a can of Fix-A-Flat or something, but just, well, the point being, be prepared for a flat tire. I would keep one of those little flat tire kits in there. You can plug your own tire, and then if you have a portable air compressor or a tank with air in it, then you can blow your tire back up and keep going. Because, you know, if you're out there mowing and you get a low tire, then your cut's gonna be off. It's gonna look bad. You're gonna leave lines in the yard, be scalping places, and look terrible. So you definitely don't want to do that. But you can also, I don't understand why more mowing companies don't make just flat free tires on all their mowers. I wish they, I mean, especially those front 2 little tires. I mean, just if you can get one that's got the flat free tires, that to me is worth it. But anyway, just be prepared in case you have a flat, because that does happen time. And if you notice your mower's cutting unlevel, then oftentimes, in my experience, the number one reason why that is because you have a low tire. So you want to check that and check your air pressure. And if you've got a slow leak, you might can just put a can of Fix-A-Flat in there, or some of that green slime stuff, and fix it without having to replace the tire. 26, buy a pneumatic grease gun. I honestly don't use one anymore. I use the pistol grip, you know, but greasing your equipment is very important. The pneumatic ones are great if they're functioning properly, and you just sit there and just blasting oil and grease into the grease fittings. But the one-handed pistol grips are fine too. Now the one, you know, grease guns for whatever reason are made for people that have 3 hands, the standard ones, because you need 2 hands to squeeze it, and then sometimes you need a 3rd hand to hold the fitting, you know, the nozzle onto the fitting. So, you know, the pistol grip just makes sense because you can just use 1 hand for that. And of course the pneumatic one is great too, because you can just pull the trigger and it does the work for you. So anyway, greasing is very important. Don't neglect it, and you know, just take care of your equipment. It'll take care care of you. Number 27, this is a tip that a friend of mine gave me who was a police officer. And he said, write down the serial number and model number of your equipment, your mower and things, or maybe take a picture of it, or even put some kind of unique marking on your mower. That way, if it gets stolen, and unfortunately lawn equipment is a popular item for people to steal, then at least if it gets found, you have some way of claiming that this is my mower. You have a marking on it, or you can say, hey, here's the serial number. Does it match up with the one you found? So, the stealing is such a pain, and hopefully it don't happen. You have to consider whether you want to get insurance on your equipment or not. But this is one thing you can do, is keep up with your model number and serial number in case that happens. 28, keep a chart. I've mentioned this before, but keep a chart. Again, you can use a dry erase board or Excel worksheet or whatever of the common maintenance that your equipment needs. So if you know that I need to change the oil in my mower every 100 hours, and I wrote down the date that it happened last time and how many hours it had. So my mower had, let's just, it may not always be exactly on 100, but let's just say it had 112 hours when I changed the oil last. And I wrote that down, that happened on such and such date. Well, then I know that 212 hours, I need to change the oil again, because I'm sitting there looking at it. Same thing with all the different basic maintenance things. You have a maintenance schedule for that mower. You can find it online or find it in your owner's manual. And don't just think, how long has it been since I changed the oil? Well, I don't know. Been a while. I don't even remember. Or go look at your oil and see how black it is because you ain't changed it in forever. So keep up with that kind of stuff. That's not hard. That's the thing about it. It's not hard to do. It just takes a little bit of discipline to have a little bit of a system so that you don't just screw it up and neglect your maintenance. I mean, it really doesn't take much extra time to go there with a dry erase marker and write down 212 hours or 112 hours, put in an Excel worksheet or whatever you gotta do. Number 29, stop service for late customers. Now on my list here, I said stop cutting after they're a month late on their bill. That's not correct. You don't need to go a month. You need to go sooner. Matter of fact, I wanna try to encourage you to improve your cash flow system as great as possible. Here's what I used to do, and this was terrible. I would mow somebody's lawn, let's say for the month of July. Let's say I was cutting it every week. So let's say I did 4 cuts in July. I would send them a bill at the end of July, and then they had all of August to pay it before I, called them or checked on them. So I'd send them a bill end of July. I've already did 4 cuts. Then I may have already done 4 more cuts in August before I get paid. I'm 8 cuts behind, and I'm always running a month behind for some of these people. And then they don't pay you, you're out 2 months. That's way too long. It's way too long. You need to take control of your billing. And I would say at worst case scenario, bill them at the middle of the month and it's due at the end of the month. But even better, you bill them at the first of the month and it's due by the 15th of the month, or they pay at the time of the service, or you have your credit card on file and you charge it at the time of service. So, I mean, don't let your cash flow get out of hand. Now, most people were fine and they'd pay, and I'd mow their grass through October and I'd get that final payment in November, and then I was all caught up. But again, it's just, why be behind on the cash flow? And if they're not willing to understand that you've got to get paid sooner than later because you're running a business, then they might not be ideal. And if they don't understand that you're running a business and you have to get paid quicker, then they may not be the ideal customer for you. You don't have to be rude about that. You just be real direct and you say, hey, here's how we do our payment. We bill you at the first of the month, it's due by the 15th of the month, or we put a credit card on file, and whatever your standard is, then you tell them that. Now, you might make an exception for somebody. If somebody's late by a week, you don't have to take them to small claims court or anything like that to extreme. Be a reasonable person about it, but you can't have somebody just procrastinate late after late after late and just constantly having to go back. You're not a collection agency, you're a lawn care service. Make sure that you get the payment on your terms. And to be honest with you, I've had a hard time doing this. Sometimes I give people the benefit of the doubt too much, or let them be late continually, and it's really a burden. So I'm encouraging you not to make the same mistake that I've made often in my business. Number 30, stop cutting grass for anybody that, number 30, review your route and see, is there a way that you can cut out some travel time? Now, I need to look at mine, because sometimes even the way you have it set up on certain days, one, you need to look and see, do I have a customer that's just out of the way that's just not worth it? Or do I need to go up on their price? Because, you may say it's a $45 yard. Well, it may have been a $45 yard if it was in a neighborhood that you already had customers in, but when it's 10, 15 minutes out of the way, it's no longer a $45 yard. aren't to you. You need to either get rid of them or go up on their price to make it worth your while to drive out there. But you might also can just see how you can take your existing customers and reschedule them a little bit so that you're more efficient. You say, well, you know what? I'm mowing this person on Tuesday, but I believe they would actually be closer on my Thursday route if I switch some things around. So it just takes some time, and I think oftentimes we get caught up in like, how long did I spend on this one particular yard? Was I profitable in that yard? Sometimes we forget all the time we waste by driving around and just being completely inefficient in the other time. Even getting to your spot in the morning. So like, let's say that it's just you, or you got you and one other person, and you go and you're trying to get out the door in the morning, and you say you start at 7:30 and you drag around because you don't have everything ready to go, and it ends up being 45 minutes before you get to your first yard. Well, you just wasted 45 minutes of two people in the man time, so we just need to have a very efficient system where we can get out there, even planning your day according to the traffic and knowing like, wow, if I wait till 7:45 to go to this yard, I'm going to be sitting there in traffic. So I either need to go earlier or I need to go later, or maybe I can start my day going a different direction away from the traffic and come back there at 9:30 when the traffic's kind of died down from the morning rush. So just taking time and sitting and thinking through those things can make a big difference. Number 31, be friendly to your competitors. I find that it's mostly a good group of people that are in the lawn care industry. Now, you got people that you don't want to deal with and all that, but in general, I want to have a good reputation amongst my customers, but also with my competitors. I want to have respect for them, that they're out there working hard, doing great. Now, of course, we're competing. I'm trying to gain business. They're trying to gain business, but ultimately, we are want to be respectful of each other, because you know what? Some of those guys, it may end up becoming your friends someday, and you may even have to help each other out. I've talked about this before. You might have a system where if you have a friend in the lawn business, that if your equipment goes down, maybe that you can jump in with them and they can help you get your yards done, and vice versa. So you have sort of partnership with your so-called competitors. Again, we're competitors. We want to win. We want to gain business, but you don't have to treat people terrible just because you're trying to compete against them in business. Number 32, don't try to do everything in the lawn care business. Go out there your first year and say, I tell you what, I'll do anything for anybody. You need me to clean your gutters, fertilize your grass, and fix your sprinkler system, mow the lawn, I'll install sod. Most of the time when I've tried to do that, and I ended up losing money. I remember doing a sod job for a guy. We put out like 10 pallets of sod. Well, I didn't have the equipment to set up, the manpower to do sod. Now, can I put sod out? Of course I can, but I wasn't something I was doing on a regular basis. I didn't have the equipment. I underbid it and ended up being a horribly unprofitable job. I'm not saying I lost money, but I certainly didn't make near as much as it was worth. So, I'm not saying you can't grow and expand to other areas, but it would probably help you, at least in the early days, to kind of figure out, get you something established that you can make your money on, and then you say, what else can I grow into that might be a more profitable area? So for some people, mowing lawns is kind of the steady income, and they say, yeah, but I'm also going after some high-end landscaping jobs. Or for me, like I built a weed control and fertilization business and trying to make greater profits in that. So but just trying to dabble in a little bit of everything is probably not a good idea unless you're a huge business and you have the manpower and expertise to do so. Number 33, don't buy more equipment than you need. Now, sometimes I see people and they're just strapped for cash because they went out there and they bought way more equipment than you needed without the customers. You can always go buy more equipment. I mean, anytime you want more equipment, they'll sell it to you. I mean, I don't remember a time when they wouldn't. So you need to obviously get what you need. I mean, I remember starting off my first mowing business. I had a 44-inch Hustler Mini Z zero-turn mower, and then I had a string trimmer, edger blower, that sort of thing, and a trailer. And that mower was fantastic. Now, was it the perfect mower to go out there and mow 5 acres? No, it wasn't. I mean, it would have been undersized for that, but it was very versatile, and that was enough to get me started. Now, I can always go back and later, I think the next year, I bought a bagging mower, and I began adding things and doing things differently and had a bigger and better setup. But sometimes people I think, are you just in the lawn business so you can go buy more equipment? I mean, sometimes I want to put some money in the bank not just have another something to go buy. So get what you need, but don't just go out there and be an equipment junkie, especially until you get the revenue coming in to justify the equipment that you're buying. I mean, why would you buy a piece of equipment? I was thinking about this recently. Like, I could buy this piece of equipment, $6,500, something I'm thinking about. I was like, it might be 4 years before I even paid it off, because I don't think I would use it enough and get enough jobs for a specialty piece of equipment. So it just doesn't make sense. I mean, I want something that I'm using all the time. That, like, for me, I've got this spray tank that cost me, $11,000 or $12,000. But that thing will make me, I might make $1 million off that one spray tank. I mean, I might, maybe I exaggerate a little bit, but it is extremely profitable and lasts for years. So there's no doubt that's a great purchase. But if I bought something that was $5,000 I use like once a year to make $500, well, that's going to take me 10 years to break even on that piece of equipment. It doesn't make sense in that situation. 34, go to my website, lawncarelife.com. This is self-promotion, but I do have courses available. I'm just coming out at the time of this video with a weed control and fertilization program that I've spent over a year working on. There's another course for those getting into the weed control, for the mowing side of the business. There's marketing letters, logos, whatever. A lot of resources available there that I put a lot of time and effort in. Of course, like I said, YouTube has a lot of resources available for you as well. So I would encourage you to make yourself available. Sometimes it makes sense, in my opinion, and I've had to come around. I'm kind of a tight spender sometimes, but I've told this before, I one time spent $2,500 to go to a 2-day conference to help me grow in my expertise in a particular area. And that was worth it, because I was able to take that and make more money. Now, I know that's the only time I've ever done that. I don't like spending that much money on much of anything, but in that situation, I looked at it as like, if that will help me make more money, then I'm okay with it. And that was what I did. So anyway, just something to consider. 35. I would encourage you to have some type of employee standards or handbook, especially if it's just you, maybe you don't have to, but if you're going to bring anybody on, you want to have it typed up, something that they can review and even sign, that acknowledging they've read these standards, talking about everything from, how we're going to conduct ourselves in the field, how you'll be paid, your vacation time, and what's expected and what can get you, fired even. Like, hey, if you don't show up, you're going to get a warning, and, kind of just a system of how to operate your business and what it's going to look like, not just be out there winging it all the time, just saying whatever happens. Because I think that will help you attract better employees and let them know that you're serious. And if they read something and acknowledge that they've received it and understand it and sign it, then they have no excuse. And honestly, it can keep you out of trouble if you ever do have to fire someone. You'll have documented evidence that they understood the rules. And if they, let's say if you're past 10 minutes late, the first time, okay, there's grace. The second time, you're going to get written up with a warning. The third time, there's this consequence. Well, and each time you need to document that, hey, you were late, and so I'm going to put this in a file folder under your name. And that way, if you ever do have to fire them, they go say that they were wrongfully terminated or something, you'll have documented evidence of what happened. Number 36, write down or type up your goals for the next 3, 5, 10 years. I think it's important to do so. Where am I right now? But what do I want my business to look like 3 years from now? Do I want to be the most profitable solo operation out there? Or am I trying to grow to a second crew, a third crew, and more? And what do I want it to look like in 10 years? What would my business look like if it was finished? Kind of this idea of you're an artist and you're painting a masterpiece. What's the finished product going to look like? Or I'm just out there, I don't know, I'm just going to start painting and we'll see what happens. Well, that's probably not a good approach. So if you know that this is what I want the finished product to look like, and you can start working towards that, and it can, you have a direction that you're heading in. So I think it's good, and it's good to go back and review these and to say, all right, maybe an annual review. Here's where we're trying to be in 10 years. What practical steps do we need to take this year to get there? So like, do I need to buy another piece of equipment? Do I need to, is it projected at my growth rate that I'm going to need to hire someone in 18 months from now? Or maybe I want to hire someone, but I'm not getting enough business. So what marketing strategy can I use to increase the number of customers I'm getting so that I can be ready to hire someone in 18 months? Or how's my income looking? Is that something I need to change so that I can grow the health of my business? So anyway, a lot of things to review and consider in regards to that. 37, mulch as many yards as possible. I'm not opposed to bagging lawns, but oftentimes my bagging mower was just not used enough to justify the cost of it. And I mean, you have to charge more for bagging, in my opinion. I often would bag people's yards and charge them the same as if I was mulching it. Well, that's not reasonable. It takes more time. You might have to do something with the clippings, just stopping and emptying the hopper and all. It's more the time it takes and just anyway. The mulching mowers are fantastic. They'll mulch the clippings up, and my thought would be try to get as many people mowing weekly as possible, because if you wait 2 weeks to mow somebody's grass and you gotta cut it, it's so tall. One, if you bag it, you're gonna have so many clippings. If you mulch it, you're gonna, it's gonna be a lot. You might have to go over the yard 2 or 3 times. So I mean, try to get them on a regular schedule where you're not having to mow so much off. And then mulching it is great. I mean, it can, you learn your pattern of this, you're gonna do it, and figure out how to, even if you leave a little line of grass, you can go over that again and disperse the clippings with your blower, or go over that. Just maybe if you have a bagging mower, you can just run over that little line of clippings with the bagging mower to clean them up, or use the blower, or raise the deck on your mulching mower to disperse of those clippings. There's a lot of things you can do to do it, but the mulching in general is just more profitable. And that's what I would recommend. 38, get you a nice commercial grade string trimmer and backpack blower. Now, sometimes I use the mid-size blowers. I like those if you're just blowing off clippings off the driveway. But if you're doing big leaf cleanups, the big ones are definitely better. But especially on a string trimmer, I mean, I don't necessarily have the biggest one out there. I'm not trying to take the siding off the house, but I just don't want the low end or residential model. I mean, because again, it comes back to speed and efficiency, and the bigger, more powerful ones, they're just faster, and faster means more money. Same thing with a blower, but again, just blowing clippings off the mid-size blower is great. You don't want a little handheld blower out there. You're costing yourself time, and it's just not that much more expensive. If it costs $200 to get a handheld blower, and for $400 you can get a mid-size, and $500 to $600 you get the big one. Again, it's not even about the money. It's about how much time am I saving, because you got to figure out how you're making money, and all that time you're wasting is ultimately costing you money, not saving you money. Personally, I like Husqvarna trimmers, and I like Red Max blowers. That would be my choice, but there's a lot of good brands. It's not like those are the only good brands. Those are just the personal ones that I prefer. 39, hire good people and increase their pay. You've got to take care of the people if you want to keep them. Now, again, this goes back to your business. You've got to be a profitable business. You got to keep your rates up. You got to, in my opinion, go up on your prices. I would recommend every 3 years to increase your prices by 3%, or maybe you just say, hey, every year we're going to go up by 1%, or maybe 2%. I mean, and you're going to wean some people off like that. They're not going to like that. But the truth of the matter is, lots of people get a pay raise every year, and the cost of living goes up every year. So if you keep your rates flat, then it's not good. And if you just say, well, every 10 years, I'm gonna raise them 10%, well, you're gonna scare more people off going with a 10% price hike than you are going incrementally 1% a year, or 3% every 3 years, or however you want to do it. But just, but again, if you got a yard that is unprofitable, then if you got to go up 50% immediately, go up 50%. I mean, don't continue doing an unprofitable yard. That makes absolutely no sense. So, do what you got to do, but once you price them right, you still can go up incrementally every few years, or 1% every year. That's just an example, but do whatever is comfortable for you. But to keep it flat is not smart. And number 40, and this was when I knew this list was totally outdated and needed a new update, as I mentioned before, buy a GPS, because you don't want to drive around. Hey, you don't have to buy a GPS, use your phone, but do whatever, figure out the routing and route it out. Know exactly how I'm going to route my day, and do it the same way every single time if you can. Know that, hey, on Tuesdays, I go this exact order every single time. And I have it timed out where I know I'm going to be done with this yard by 1:30 on Tuesday. Now, I may give or take 5 minutes or so, depending on how things are going, but you have it routed out considering a lot of factors. Traffic, what time, this is a commercial property, so I know we can get there at 6:30 in the morning if we want to, where I can't go to a residential property at 6:30. So, I mean, just thinking through all the factors and developing your route, and then using technology to help you optimize that to be as efficient as possible. I'm Jason Creel. I really appreciate you watching this. I know it's a long video. You might have to go back and watch some of it again, watch it, if you need to review these and to be able to implement them into your business. There are a resource available for you at lawncarelife.com. Of course, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. Thanks for watching. I hope you'll be a regular contributor to the channel in the comments. I try to have fun on the channel, try to entertain people when possible, but also provide relevant information to help you be successful. Appreciate it. Talk to you later. Bye.